All right. Hello and welcome back to Laura and Leonie's Systemic Stories, Practice and Possibilities. It's Laura here, and we've got Leonie.
Hi, everyone. We're very excited today. We're talking with Alex, and Alex is a mental health social worker and family therapist who also teaches at university level. And we're going to be chatting about systemic practice in leadership today.
Hi, Alex.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's such a privilege to be part of a conversation about systemic practice because it's shaped not only who I am clinically, but also how I lead and how I think about teams and ultimately how I've understood myself as well.
And Alex, like we have watched your journey, right? So we were just reflecting before we press record about how we met, and it was a number of years ago where you first got
Yeah.
introduced to systems thinking. So we'd love to hear from you. Like, tell us your journey with systemic work, and where did the seed get planted, and
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey, and I think it really started when um, the seed was originally planted when I met Leonie back when I was doing my psychotherapy masters, and I was like, this is a whole new world. So I nearly converted to doing the family therapy course then, but I didn't. And I'm glad I waited because I think I needed to be in the right mindset to take on this whole new way of thinking. And then I think uh, more kind of therapeutically, I was really noticing that young people's difficulties like often reflected broader relational patterns. And I remember thinking, if we only focus on the individual, we're like missing half the story.
Yeah.
Um, so I from there it was really a journey of like how the hell do I find out more about this, and that really led me down the amazing path of doing more study in the area. And so I did the accredited systemic advanced, what was it called, the advanced systemic family therapy certificate, something like that.
Well, we met, I think, when in professional development first, for QC
Yes.
in family therapy, and then the Queensland Institute of Family Therapy QIFT, the advanced certificate in systemic family therapy, which was one of the 2-year programs that I used to run before Phoenix.
Mm.
So it was really quite an immersive experience, I think. Would you say that, or maybe
Oh
not?
my goodness. Yes, it was a very immersive experience. I fully took the opportunity to marinate in it and really just like was so curious. And I think that really put me in a good position to wanting to understand the bigger picture and what a systemic family therapy lens can bring. And I'd say like the potential for change to ripple across the system was what really was a big pull, and what was really just blowing my mind in terms of changing the way that I wanted to practice and the kind of therapist I wanted to be.
Mm.
So it was a incredible, exciting opportunity, and really reset how I approached my therapeutic work, and also who I am as a person. So it filtered and diffused across various aspects of my life. So yeah, it does come with a caution. It
a
will
caution
take
of
over your
life
life.
changing,
Yeah.
totally. And so, Alex, I guess, we're so excited to have you on to talk about leadership because I know you've been doing a lot of work in the leadership space, thinking a lot about systemic practice. I don't know, I'd just love to hear from you how you think it's like sitting in your leadership piece as well.
Yes. I mean, that's been an interesting journey within itself, the leadership piece. So I am currently a team leader. Um, and I think what's been interesting is I often liken that kind of journey to, I think I've said this to you before, Laura, like a child star growing up in the spotlight, trying to find my authentic leadership style. And, obviously I had experiences of being in teams and seeing various examples and templates of what a team leader can offer. But I really wanted to desperately find my own kind of authentic and, also bring that systemic way of being, kind of, like navigating a family system. I wanted to be able to navigate this team system. And just as in like systemic therapy, I had to notice the patterns, the relationships, and the dynamics within a team as well. And I had to reflect on how my presence shaped the system, how my reactions, my decisions, my energy influenced the people around me. And I'd say there was a lot of process of trial and error, testing different ways of being, asking myself, like, am I leading in a way that aligns with my values? Am I supporting the system without taking over it? Like, I think over time I realized leadership isn't about having all the answers. It's about really leading yourself first. And my self-awareness, curiosity, and capacity to reflect became really the tools of what I was bringing into the system. And I had a lot of help and a lot of support in getting there to kind of reach that kind of conclusion. But yeah, it's an ongoing journey, the old finding your leadership style. It's really it's been like not about fitting like a template or meeting others' expectations. It's been really noticing the effects of my presence, experimenting with my approach, and I guess really at the core of it, showing up in a way that's both authentic and systemic. Because I think without that lens, I would have really struggled to find my feet in kind of these really big systems. Because I think the transition from therapist to leader is not necessarily, it doesn't kind of translate or map on perfectly by any means. I think there's certainly an overlap in that Venn diagram, but I'd say that there's actually a whole journey you need to do to get there, to find that, because who you are as a therapist and who you are as a leader, I found is similar, but also a very different experience when you need to maintain relationships with a team in an ongoing way.
Wow, Alex, it sounds like your systems thinking has been really helpful in that journey. Because when you were speaking just now, I was hearing themes like considering interrelatedness and circularity, how you're impacting others, how you're impacted by them. I was hearing ideas from Bowen around kind of differentiated position. Yeah, I can see that one caught your attention.
Yeah.
Is that, and you know what, I'm going to say the authenticity piece. Virginia Satir was talking about authenticity and well-being, kind of long before other people. So maybe like the Bowen stuff seemed to really catch your attention. Is that something that you think about like really kind of consciously and reflect on, or is it just come naturally?
Well, I guess I've had to kind of really, because I mean, being an authentic person or trying to be an authentic leader, I've had to really consider what are my values and how am I going to show up. And I would say that, some of that has been just because of the training that I've done. But then the big, deep reminders that I've needed, the supervision, the systemic supervision that I've had has been incredibly impactful and needed to kind of get me to this position where I feel like I know I'm starting to know who I am as a leader, and I've got some identity and I can like stand in my authenticity. So I would say that it's organic from doing the training. And I would say as a social worker, I have always had that kind of systemic lens, but this has taken it to the next level of me in the system. And I've needed that support along the way to be able to maintain that, particularly because anxiety in systems is so contagious. And I've really needed that support and reminders and
Yeah.
scaffolding to be able to make those leaps again and be like, oh, that's right. Oh, okay, differentiation. Okay, authenticity. I've really needed those that support to maintain that, because it's tricky. It's hard out there.
I love that, Alex. And I was thinking about, differentiation and you're right. You sit in these systems that invite you to like wobble and lose yourself and lose how you want to be as a leader. So I'd love to know from you, like practically on the ground, how does that look for you? So you feel it
Mm.
rising, the stress is rising around the team, or there's an issue bubbling. How do you find your place with that and find that moment of differentiation where you can go, yeah, this is how I want to turn up?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it does require a level of observation of self,
Mm.
and it also requires you to pull the handbrake up a little bit and stop flopping into kind of positions or kind of going into systems that you haven't even thought about how you're going to position yourself. So it's required a lot of kind of slowing down, thoughtfulness. Like, okay, like if I'm going to take this approach, what do I need to consider? What is the intentionality with taking this approach? So it's kind of not, it's not being judgmental of myself around, oh, this is a good path or a bad path, or a good decision or a bad decision. It's more about being like, okay, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to make this decision, what might be my thoughts and considerations around this? And if this does blow up in my face, okay, I've thought about this beforehand. So there's a real intentionality that I've had to bring into my work,
Mm.
um, and that's been harder than it seems, because I think a lot of clinicians connect to Bowen, and I think all would love to practice in a really differentiated way. But what that actually means on the ground can be really hard to find what works for you. And so for me, it's like it's just slowing down. It's like, okay, what do I actually want to do here, and what might be the outcome of that, and am I ready to accept those consequences or a great outcome as well? So I'd say that kind of just slowing down bit before I'm like just flopping and reacting.
We love a good slow down moment, kind of thinking and being intentional. Um, and I guess it just kind of got me curious then. Um, what else, like from your systems thinking, because we've had lots of conversations in the past around systems thinking being useful for anything, like any system is a
Mm.
system. Kind of got me thinking, once you pull the handbrake and you slow down, and then you think, are there any other like systems thinking principles or ideas that help guide your leadership?
Um, yeah, there's so many. So it's hard to distill it down. But I think if I'm gonna kind of say something, quite basic, um, I would
Basics
say
are
I
always basic.
because I think, when we have to find that little like in systemic moment,
Mm.
I would like to start small. So I think um, everyone can create a systemic moment, and it might be as simple as like something as simple as asking, well, who else notices that like this at home or at school, or what else have you noticed? Who else is affected by this? And I think that can be applied to both, like, thinking about leadership in a team, and
Yeah.
then also therapeutically as well. Um, and I think that pause, that to notice the patterns and relationships is enough to open up new possibilities.
Mm.
Um, and even when the wider system isn't physically present, the curiosity you bring travels with you. And that can really shape the conversation and the way people think about the problem as well. And so I think that can be applied on both levels as well. And because I do still do some clinical work. You know, that kind of curiosity that can be applied to any of those kinds of ways of thinking.
I love that. So it sounds like as a leader, you're curious about yourself coming in and what you're noticing and not noticing and all those things. And also you're trying to encourage curiosity from your team as well about those patterns and what's happening. Is that right?
Absolutely. I think, you know, I often encourage people to experiment, to dip their toes, or even dive bomb into systemic thinking.
Mhm.
I think you don't have to be an expert to start asking relational questions, or noticing patterns or exploring context. I think the small moments often lead to the most meaningful change. So I would say that, you know, you don't have to go do a 2-year course to
Mm,
be a systemic thinker. Sometimes it's just about noticing some of that curiosity for yourself. And
mm.
then how do you extend that to maybe the person sitting in front of you?
Mm. And I can imagine, like, as a leader of a team, you're invited a lot to fix an individual, for example. If there's a problem happening, it's like go in and fix what's happening with that team member. But I can hear that your systemic frame is like helping you see that person in relationship with others, see that person within this system, the really complex system that they sit in. And I can just imagine how that would then resonate into you being able to hold a different relationship with the team members too.
100%. And you know, I caught a moment the other day where that kind of systemic framework was like actually, you know, kind of leaking out through the team, and I was so proud because I was like, oh, it's happening. Like all this work to kind of being this systemic leader is kind of bearing fruit. And you know, it was an example of, I think, one of the clinicians was in like a case conference situation, and I was present as well. And I think she was having a rough time with another clinician in the room, trying to defend her kind of formulation a little bit. And she reported to me after that she felt a bit uncomfortable, that it was a bit tricky. And she was talking to me about this, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have checked in with you after." And she was like, "No, no, no. I'm in charge of myself." Um, and I was like, "Wow." You know, people are kind of really leaning into that. I'm in charge of myself, and I can absolutely go and talk to you if I needed to. So I think that was just a really great moment of like, oh, cool. Like this is really a foundation of how I'm building, like how I'm helping and support and being a part of this team.
Mm.
Gosh, I love that, Alex. And because we've all had those moments in meetings, and they happen all the time, whether it's in your team or interagency work, there's always, when people lean in with passion and there's different ideas. Um, and so I just kind of love this filtering that you're talking about, from modeling, from questions, from kind of how you're showing up in your authentic style. That's helping other people see the importance of considering their responsibility for self as well.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to see that kind of really be taken on, and for people to feel like, oh, they are in charge of themselves. They do have free will. They can, you know, like feel how they're feeling, and that's valid.
Yeah.
But they also don't expect me to be mind readers around how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's a really nice kind of moment of, you know, them reminding me too, and catching me, and you know, going back to old templates of like, oh, I should have known. So it's really nice when it's a shared kind of way of being, and that it's not just one person. And that's the thing about, you know, I think I've learned a lot about being a leader is it's not my sole responsibility, it's a team responsibility.
Mm.
And I think that's been a really important thing as well, to unlearn like some of those templates of what it means to be a leader. So that it's been a really exciting, difficult, lovely, amazing journey.
I love that. It sounds so powerful. I just keep getting struck. I wrote down when you said observation of self, and I can really hear that in you, that that has been a massive learning for you to understand your own stuff, to understand, like you said, your templates and how they enter the space.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I'm keen, like, is there, I don't know if you want to, feel free to not share this if you like, but I know for me, understanding my family of origin was super important.
mm,
Understanding when I was in a leadership position, understanding my experience previously of team leaders or authority figures, and then how that kind of sits with me when it comes to these tricky dynamic moments. So I'm keen to know from you, like, is there anything that you have found quite helpful to learn more about yourself that makes it easy to observe in those tricky moments?
oh, yeah.
Sorry, heavy question.
Yes. No, it's a good one though, because it is so true. Being able to understand yourself, and I think if we're asking people to be self leaders, and if I'm asking myself to be a self leader, I need to understand like like who I am and
Mm,
how I'm going to lead. And a lot of that comes back to like family of origin stuff, right? So that's kind of been essential in uh, understanding and orientating the kind of leadership identity and style I wanted to authentically be. And so, I mean, first of all, I think if you do the training, being able to do your own genogram has been, I'd say, an initially important, essential first step. That's a really powerful tool that has, I know a lot of clinicians do it with their clients, with the young people, families in front of them. But to do it for yourself is, I think, really important. One, not only to understand who you are in your family context, but also to know what you're actually putting people through when you do a genogram with them.
mm,
So I think to be that kind of investigator of yourself is a really important step to take if you do want to think systemically. So that's been a big part of knowing who I am as well, and understanding that my own family context. And you know what? It is rich. There's a lot going on there. Um, and so knowing that and how I show up for my team and for the young people that I do see, I think I owe it to people to, and I owe it to myself to know that, like, the stuff that might come out.
I love that.
Um, Alex, I was just thinking too, I was just reflecting on my own journey with family of origin work as
Mm,
well as a systemic practitioner. And I don't know if it's like this for you as well, but also it's not like a one-off. Like it's like revisiting, when stuff crops up or life changes or work roles change. And yeah, I really value that part of being a family therapist, that's a core part of our
mm,
training, that we've got to pay attention to it. And it's something that we kind of hold in mind as we journey through whatever our role is, whether it's therapist or leader or, community worker.
mm. Agreed. I think, yeah, it is. It's not just a initial one and done. This is work that we need to, continue to toil with. I think to understand you have awareness of your emotional reactions, to manage your anxiety, to tolerate uncertainty, to manage your curiosity under pressure, and also stay connected to your values. I mean, these are tall orders for people and for clinicians. So we need to be able to understand that family of origin stuff that will crop up in the most unexpected places. And that's the power and necessity of systemic supervision, I think, as well. So I'm a big advocate for that, both individual and group. I think both you get different things from both, but I'd say essential to ongoing reflective and reflexive work.
I love that. So, Alex, there's probably clinicians out there thinking they might be all stages in their kind of systemic journey. Um, any tips or tricks or anything that you want to kind of encourage people? Like, I know we've talked a lot about supervision as being really important, but I guess I'm thinking about people that are stepping into leadership roles or moving kind of up in their career. I don't know, what
Mm.
would you recommend or what's some key things?
I think there's a lot of things people could do. Um, I think in order to not for people to say, "Oh, that person's failing upwards," I'd really like people to. I'd like to remind people that systemic practice is like actually incredibly accessible, and that you can actually start using it tomorrow, and you don't have to abandon your kind of current therapeutic model. So I would say become curious about, context and ask relational questions. Think about who is affected by the problem and who influences it. Notice patterns rather than focusing solely on symptoms. I would say that to be a good leader is one who examines themselves, who can notice those same kinds of things within their team. And, I think that's why I'd say, like, you don't need to feel like an expert. You can jump in, you can stay curious, and you can learn alongside the people that you're working with. Um, and I think that kind of mindset is really important, is to be a student for life, to remain curious, to lean in. And I think when it comes to being a leader, um, I would say, like, yeah, don't feel like you're holding all the cards. You've got a whole team, and not one person is going to dictate how the system inevitably goes. We can make changes for sure, but you've got a team that is also influencing, and that's not just you pulling all the strings. So I think yes, stay curious, think relationally. You keep an open mind around how you might approach and enter systems.
Well, what an amazing list of
I
suggestions. And I
know.
think the bit that stuck out to me was like it's okay to be kind to yourself too. I think that is one thing when you're a leader, you feel like you have to have it all together. You have to like know all the things and but I love that you're
Yeah.
thinking about like this is like a growing journey. You're always learning and yeah, I just think that's a really nice reminder.
Yeah, lead yourself first.
Mm.
Self leadership is a critical part of systemic practice. I think that's uh, even like a small kind of intervention like that with yourself is something that people can start to think about.
Mm. Wow.
Alex, I've just loved hearing your thoughts. And it's been such a privilege to, have you be so open about self-leadership. And I think that's really authentic, beautiful modeling for other leaders out there as well. Like Laura was saying, she was just kind of picking up, oh, it's okay to be kind to yourself and to go on the journey. And yeah, I'm just imagining how many people are going to find this conversation useful. So I want to say
Oh,
thank you so much.
oh, that's so my pleasure. I think, if this conversation can, help someone who's either, wanting to become a team leader or is just wanting to be a leader of self, that reminder that this systemic work isn't just about changing someone else. It's about noticing your influence and being intentional with it. I think that hopefully can strike a chord with some people.
I think it will.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Alex. It's been such a pleasure having this chat with you. And yeah, look forward to watching your adventure in that big wide world.
Oh, yeah. Stay tuned.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks
Alex.
so much for having me.
See you.
Bye.
Okay, so hi again, everyone. Now, as you know, Laura and I just wanted to share a few of our reflections on the podcast. And gosh, there was so much in that. And I was kind of madly scribbling some notes, Laura, as we were talking. Um, I think my first reflection is just this idea that Alex had that everyone can create a systemic moment. And it's okay to start small and just how accessible systemic thinking and practice can be, which makes my heart really warm because I would love to see systemic thinking and practice, kind of spread far and wide. Um, the other thing that really caught my attention was unlearning. That's something I've talked about, in other places as well. And sometimes we do need to unlearn a past framework or idea or kind of process to be open to new ways of doing things, which for Alex, I kind of got the sense, and I don't know if you'd agree, but I kind of got the sense that, it starts with self. And when she said, lead yourself first, that
Mm.
just really struck home with me.
Oh, I agree. I think, yeah, that self-leadership piece was so powerful for me to hear. And like I've been a leader before in teams, but I don't think I had the depth of, or even the ability to articulate all of those pieces that Alex was talking about. The bit
Absolutely,
that
me
I
too.
loved, the bit that I loved was this observation of self.
Yep,
And Alex said to be the investigator of yourself, to understand you, so
mm,
then you can observe yourself better when you're within that system or in that leadership role.
yeah.
And, she spoke so bravely about how she's had to do her own digging around her family of origin and templates. And you really see that that can pay off because then you can understand yourself better when you're entering into the relationships. Of course, I love to pull out the practical ideas and yeah, that idea that when you're in the heat or you're in the moment and you're managing the anxiety, chuck the handbrake on, pull the handbrake,
Yep.
slow down, be intentional, stay curious. And I just think that is so powerful. If I think about, particularly in a leadership position, all the pressures that are coming in to your world, but being able to slow down and just take a pause to get curious, reorientate, and get intentional again. I just think they were really helpful tips and tricks that we can all take.
It's definitely something that I wish someone had brought to my attention or that I, kind of naturally thought more of when I first moved into leadership. I think it maybe took me a little longer than it took Alex. So I'm just like so happy that she was able to kind of share those thoughts and think about, all the people moving into that space and that they get to hear how important it is.
For sure. So I just think it was an amazing conversation. I'm looking forward to hearing how it resonates with people.
Mm,
So to end our conversation, Leonie, we've been
yeah.
having to play with catchy endings
Yeah.
because this is the awkward part of our podcast.
Getting less
So
awkward.
let me try out one. Here
Okay.
I go with an ending. So thanks everyone for listening, and let's keep the systemic stories flowing.
All right. Sounds great. Goodbye, everyone.
See you.